Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer turned career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. But after years of exploring personal and career development, business, money mindset, and energy work, I'm here to tell you that yes, you can move from stuck and defeated to empowered and confident. Ready to dive in? Awesome. Together, let's ditch the struggle. Okay, guys, welcome back. This is going to be part 2 of my toxic boss story. And I did mention that Jane, the boss, I believe to be a covert narcissist, and I really recommend checking out the work of Dr. Ramani. She's kind of the godmother of narcissism. She's on YouTube. She's also had a great interview on the Diary of a CEO. Definitely dive into that. If some of the story starts to ring true for someone either you know or you're working with, narcissism is... it's a tough one. And as someone who is an empath, I feel that we are often targeted because I think we're just easy targets for people that are narcissists. We can be just easily sucked into their world, taken advantage of, especially I'm a recovering people pleaser. I've talked about that. And actually, in many ways, this woman, Jane, was a people pleaser. She was just sucking up to everybody all the time. She was the most disingenuous person I've ever met in my entire life. Just everything about her was fake. I'm not going to mince words in this episode because, as I've mentioned, I believe in calling a spade, and we cannot tolerate intolerable behavior. And I'm not going to sweep this under the rug. And so if someone is abusive or someone is awful to someone else, we need to call that out. I'm not really worried about how this is going to look on me because, first of all, I will say I did not show up as my best self in certain parts of this. Like, I was so upset and I became so physically sick and I had to take a leave of absence from work. I was so distraught and so upset from this that part of me was just checking out. There were times of this job that I was barely checking in. Was so much going on. So I'll dive more into that. So I'm not going to mince words. I'm going to give a little bit of hammer time, as Declan calls it, when I drop the hammer. Because this is what happened. This is what happened. One other thing I want to share is that part of the reason I am telling this story, and I started telling it very early on. So I left the job in May 2021. So I'd started August 2018. It had been just, 2 years and 9 months since I was there, and I left May 2021. That year in 2021, I hopped on a lot of podcasts and I told the story. I wanted to tell it when it was fresh in my mind. I wanted to get it out there. So I'll leave links for those podcast episodes that you can hear me talk about it because there's probably things in there I'll forget to mention here. They're also on my website if you go to the section that's called As Seen On. But I somehow stumbled across this video, a TEDx talk by Heather Monahan. She's a coach in the personal development world. And it's a very short 10-minute talk. And I'm going to put the link in the show notes. And it's called Me Too's Misstep or Me Too's Mistake. Now, I think it's an awful title, but it's a great story because just the initial sentence on the YouTube video note says, while Me Too nailed the harassment that women have endured in the workplace by men, they left out the single most destructive villain to another woman's career, another woman. And absolutely, this Jane was the villain in my story. She is the villain in my story. And when you are a threat to a villain, you will be a target. And this is what Heather talks about. You will be a target. And to say I was targeted is 100% true. I knew it. I could see it. I could feel it within 6 seconds of working with her. A lot of covert narcissists, a lot of toxic bosses, they're very threatened by highly competent people. And I have no problem saying that I'm highly competent at what I do for a living. I have just done it forever. I have a great track record. And I'm friends with literally people from every single job I've had way back, even into when I worked at Umbra 100 years ago. I'm still friends with people there. I am friends with bosses. Not to say I got along with everybody, absolutely not. But I feel like I do work with integrity. But as I said, I did not show up at certain points of this job as my best self. I was kind of falling apart at the seams. And I'll dive into that. And you know what's an interesting thing is part of the reason why I was like very hesitant to kind of dive back into this story again is like so much time has passed. Well, A, is it going to look like I'm still upset by it or stuck in time or haven't moved on? And I don't think that's true. But I have had to do a lot of work to get through this. I think just doing this podcast, these episodes, is also part of the process. I'm taking all these papers after, and I'm literally going to burn them, all these notes that I have. And I believe this is shadow work, which is really kind of looking at the hardest parts of your life, your experiences, your reactions, especially the parts where I did not show up as my best self. And these things happen. I don't want to dwell on it, but I still get people asking, are you still at Blush Cosmetics? I'm like, no, I left a long time ago. They don't know. So, that's another reason to kind of tell the story. And hopefully this will shed some light on something you're going through or something your friend's going through. I have a lot of resources on this, so please reach out if there's something that, if I can point you in a direction that will help you kind of process through this. So, okay, let's go back to Jane. We're now in part 2, which is kind of the middle. And Jane starts. And as I said, immediately, when it's just like you can feel between two people that it's just not a good scene. That was it. It was like she didn't like me. I didn't like her. And I could feel that she was definitely threatened by my competence, my ability. And to this day, as I've said, I don't know if I've ever worked with someone less competent. I mean, they didn't know how to do their job. Not only could they technically not, work through the systems and the servers and all that stuff and just find files, like they could never find files, she could never find it, really kind of brought nothing to the table in any of the meetings. So I had to directly report to her. I had a very small team that I was working with. And then there was other people on the marketing team. And this all began really through Zoom, right? Because this was the beginning of the pandemonium. And everything was kind of going okay for the most part for a little while, for a few months. And I think a lot of this was the cultural difference. And if I could say anything, is that when people start a company or a new job, and they're coming from a different country with different cultural background, it would be really helpful if HR could kind of walk both parties through how each country is, like how each person works coming from different countries. It's just different. And there's cultural differences everywhere. Like if you are someone who from Toronto and you're working in Vancouver and it's a different vibe entirely, you have to learn how to maneuver things and like work together differently. Because it came from a totally different culture, I think there was a lot that we didn't understand in terms of like, she just would not show up to meetings. She would show up late all the time. And we just don't do that here. I mean, Toronto people are so high strung. She had lived in Vancouver. So I think she thought we were a little like Vancouver people and all Canadians are the same. It's not the case at all. It's like Vancouver people hate Toronto. Okay, maybe they don't hate us, but we're really uptight. I would say Toronto people are not friendly. It's different. I'm sorry, like my anti-Team Toronto is coming through here, but there was just like challenges in terms of, okay, she's not showing up to meetings. Basically every Friday, I have no idea where she was. And at some point I had to bring this up to HR because, things have to get approved. She would be AWOL, like literally unavailable. And then when everything started hitting the fan, would talk about how she worked 14 hours a day. So I don't know what 14 hours of the day she was working. I don't even know where she was working for those 14 hours because I don't think it was at this company. Whether she had a second job, I'm not sure what the hell was going on. But the clash was kind of evident. And I started to figure out that she wanted to be, you have to understand too, we're really at the height of girl boss culture, hustle culture, women taking over the world. Everyone's a Beyonce. It's like everyone's just in that, like every personal development book is about just being the best girl boss you could possibly be. It's like we're in that world, right? And for me, what was going on was I was really getting involved in the coaching industry. So at the end of 2019, I'd done a design thinkers talk. I was just a small talk, but I started speaking more. So there was a few things going on for me. I had gotten my second substantial coaching designation. I was seeing some clients. I was working a company on the side, and you could see my Instagram. I was doing coaching on the side, and a lot of people do full-time work and also coach on the side or do a side business, right? Really, a company cannot decide that you can't have a second income and make a living, or, they can't. But you want to make sure, obviously, that you're still getting your job done, which I always did. So I never dropped the ball on actually getting my work done. But I knew that she was watching what I was doing outside of work. And I knew this because things came up later on, which she would have only known from my social media. I had to block her from my social media. And I also had to block the general manager, Alex, because I felt that they were going to use the fact, and they did use the fact, that I was doing a side hustle against me, and that I wasn't, committed to the job, which of course was ridiculous. So because I've never not given 100% into a job. For the most part, as I said, there were days where I was really kind of just phoning it in to get through, and partly because I physically had such little energy by the end to kind of fight through this. So we're not really getting along. It's kind of fake camaraderie, fake, like we're on the same team. Okay, this is fine. I knew how to play the game. But though early on, I started to complain or send notes of concern or verbal notes of concern to the general manager. Now, this is where you think you're going to get support. And she was a very competent person at her job, and that she was a hard worker, the general manager. I didn't always get along, like the way she did things, but she got things done. And I thought that she would see exactly what I'm seeing and what, other people are seeing, and be like, yeah, this is completely unacceptable. No. In the end, Alex ended up defending Jane till the very end, probably still to this day. Was never going to see things the way I saw things, was always going to side with her. And there was something going on behind the scenes between them in terms of Jane was protected. Always protected. And I do not know why. I have some ideas. It would all be speculation. I have no evidence. I knew in my gut that there was something really effed up going on in terms of she was being protected for some reason. I sort of know some things, but it would all be speculation. So I can't really just throw that out there because it would just be wouldn't make any sense. So I was like, this woman is protected, and then Alex is always going to side with Jane. And I started to realize that it was them against me. And very quickly, I knew that Jane did not want me in this role. So I'd been in it a while. I was definitely getting really good at it, getting in the groove. But I started to figure out it didn't matter how good I was at my job, that this was probably not going to end well. And I remember when I did talk to, Alex about, I think I sent her a Teams message, can we talk about this? And so basically I had to hop on a meeting with Alex and Jane to talk about what was going on. This is I think August of 2020. And it was one of those meetings where, when you just get blindsided with two people ganging up on you and you're just blasted at with everything that you're not doing or everything that is your fault. And I left that thing completely decimated. I was like, what the F just happened? It was definitely them against me. And I thought, oh my God, this is not going to go well. And where things really start to escalate, and I'm going to get to this shortly, is with a performance plan. So a review. And what do they call them? So at this company, they have what is called a PCR, and it's a performance and career review. So I usually just call it performance plan, but that's where things really escalated. And I'm going to read to you some of the feedback that I got on this performance plan that really helped me realize that I was going to have to leave the job. But things were kind of going okay. But again, I had this really difficult meeting in August. I ended up taking a leave of absence. To give you context, I went on mental health leave. It is November 26th was the first day that I basically went on short-term disability sick leave because we had benefits and I was able to do that. So between August and November, when these things are getting really difficult, and there's just some really funny stories as to she just did not like me, and I was getting completely frustrated because she wasn't responding. She was never around. She was asking me all the time on the team to write copy for things. That was her job, the marketing person. We didn't have a copywriter, but it was the marketing director's role. I remember there was another girl on the team who was being asked to write copy, and let's just say her role had nothing to do with that. She was completely freaked out. She's having a meltdown, and it was that whole thing. And I talk about this in the there's an episode on burnout, which is a couple episodes before this. And what a lot of companies will do is say you can't say no to a request because then you're not a team player. And so you have no boundaries. And that to me is completely toxic. You can't just say, you literally have to do every single thing we ask you. And and this girl, Jane, was doing that. But they love to do this in corporate culture because they really have you up against a wall. And one of the things that is I see all the time, it actually was in my contract, was that they give you a job description. You'll read through your contract, you'll have a job description, and then it will say, and any other assigned duties. So that can mean freaking anything. And that's how they kind of get you. We're like, okay, we're going to write the job description, but we're just going to throw this in. And this is like a legal way to just like, okay, we'll get you to do absolutely, we're going to get you to wash the windows. You okay with that? We're just going to, like ridiculous stuff. And actually, I'd be happy to do, like, I'm the type of person who would like, I'll go get the coffees if we want to do that, pick up the Timbits, whatever. Great. But there's a point where there's just too much work piled on, right? And there's too many things that you're not, you can't do. So because this person didn't actually know how to do their job, and I'm not kind of making that sound like dramatic, or I honestly do not know how they did their job or how they thought they could do their job, because I never saw anything that suggested to me that they knew how to do a proper marketing plan, how to have social media plans, any of that stuff. So it was like really shocking to all of us. And it became like, we wanted to not include her in anything because it was easier to just do it ourselves. Like we had gone, again, 15 months without having a boss. So it was harder to have someone come in who couldn't do their job and was just like making everything just messy. So things started getting really difficult. I'm going to tell this funny kind of story because this really, this made her mad. Like I made her so mad, and it's this like stupidest thing. But for my graphic designers listening, you're going to get a good laugh out of this because, so come, I think it was end of October, we had to just get together a Christmas card to send out, like a printed Christmas card. It wasn't just digital, to all of our suppliers and vendors and all that stuff. Does anyone really care about getting a Christmas card from a corporation? Not really. I didn't see it as a priority. Something that had to be done, of course. So what I did is I kind of whipped something together pretty quickly based on some campaigns that we had run. So I took some graphics from that. It was very simple. So I make this Christmas card. It gets approved by the GM, Alex. No big deal. We're going to print. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know where Jane was in the approval process, but at some point she sees the Christmas card and is like, no, this is like not good enough. And we were so busy, because the reason why we would be so busy at that time is every January there would be what we would call a AAA launch, which is like a really important product is launching in Sephora. And I guess it would go into Shoppers Drug Mart as well, but like a huge product. So a huge launch. So we're spending all of like November, December, getting all of the things ready and shipped out to print because everything's going in store in January. So huge, like really busy time for us. And she's worrying about this Christmas card. And one of the big reasons that we really just did not get along is I had a way of prioritizing what I was working on. So as my job, the graphics creative manager, I had a list of all the dockets. So people would submit creative requests. I would prioritize them in terms of deadline, also how important and big the launch was of that product, or what the return on investment of it would be, like what's the ROI on this. My job was to prioritize what we would work on and then assign it to myself and the team. That was actually what I'm supposed to do as a creative manager. And I'm supposed to exercise my discernment as to what to work on. She hated how I prioritized things. She would become obsessed with things like email signatures. Oh my God, even just saying those words, I'm getting like that feeling like I just like super anxious. She was obsessed with doing custom email signatures every month. And I passed on these email signatures to someone on the creative team, and Jane was furious at me for delegating this. She would get so mad at me when she would ask me to do something and I would delegate it to the team as a creative manager, being like, okay, this person can execute it way faster. My job is I've got other things to work on that are a little bit more important or that are better use of my skills. she would be furious if I delegated this. And this became like an ongoing thing. I know this sounds these examples may sound really small and petty, but it's these things that just spin out of control. So back to the Christmas card. I had the Christmas card design. It's approved. And she's like, yeah, no, we need something better. And I'm like, okay. So she decides to get inspiration. And I say inspiration in quotation marks because basically she wanted us to copy something from Chanel that she had seen online. And so helpful, she went and mocked up what she wanted in a PowerPoint. So she designed it in PowerPoint, what she wanted. And with copy that actually didn't make much sense because she was not first English speaking. So I was like, okay, we can't actually say it like this. We have to say it like this. She was so mad at me for correcting the grammar. And it went back and forth on Teams. I mean, this is just so stupid, right? And no designer wants someone to give them a PowerPoint mock-up on how they're supposed to design something. Okay, no, it's one thing to like, here's some inspiration. I saw this, but I'm going to leave it to you to execute, because we were not Chanel. We were a totally different brand. We're a totally different brand. And that's like part of what I'm bringing to the table is like, how are we keeping everything on brand? And also I was brought in to elevate our brand and make sure that we're just everything is just making sense and we look like a prestige brand because we were a prestige brand. So she mocks up this whole thing and basically created, 10 hours of work for me, something ridiculous while we're so many more important things. And she felt this was important and I didn't feel it was important. And so that was basically the conflict for most of our, working relationship is like, I thought everything she was asking me to do was a total waste of time. Why would I spend hours and hours and hours creating a Christmas card to send out when no one cares about it and we have like this huge launch coming up? But this was like, okay, she hated me after this. And this, again, is like so insane. And then the workload just kept coming and coming and coming. And I was like, I can't keep up with this. So what's happening to me physically with all the workload? And also I was begging for overtime hours for the creative team. So interestingly, they were on salary, but had to work kind of on an hourly basis. And so I was allowed to allot hours for overtime, but she was basically knocking me down and not letting me do it because she wanted me to do it. She didn't want anyone else to do it. She's like, you should be doing this. You should be taking everything, all the responsibility for every single project. So it's spinning out of control. And so what's happening to me is I'm not sleeping. So that's like a given, not sleeping. I'm so anxious. I'm waking up so stressed. I had so much anxiety. My neck was so sore all the time that I could like barely move it. I was so tense all the time. I was just so frustrated. And I knew I was not going to be able to keep up with the workload. And she kept throwing stuff at us that was make work projects that made no sense. Questioning everything I did, making the process slower. I did a daily list of kind of priorities all the time and I'd have to share them with her. And then she would be like, why are you working on this? Why are you working on this? Like would question everything. And I'm just going to tell you, this is kind of so bad. But what I did do is that, of course, like every company, we had a ton of acronyms. And I knew she had no idea what anything was. So I would start writing what I was working on in as many acronyms as possible. Like every sentence would be like, I'm going to do the ACM with BCR and then we're going to send it out to CMT. And I made everything as cryptic as possible so that she wouldn't really understand what I was doing and maybe leave me alone. She's gotten pretty mad about the Christmas card. There is me getting frustrated because she's not showing up. She's not providing any input. And I'm expressing my concern again to the general manager. And at this point, I also started going to, I believe I had mentioned something to HR, but I'm not 100% sure if I had already started talking about HR until after I came back from my leave, because I'm actually thinking I didn't. So let's get then to the performance plan or this PCR that kind of kicked things off for me to go on leave. So towards the end of fall, we have to fill out these performance plans and get them looked at. And, you send it to your manager and you have to talk about everything that you've done. I hate performance plans. I don't know about you, but in the corporate culture, there's so much time. I can't stand them. I understand you have to have kind of goals and things to aim for, but I I feel like you're being treated like a child when you have to do these, like explaining everything that you've accomplished and what your goals are. And I don't know, this part of me is just like, just let me do my job. Like, yeah, let's have some goals. But because Jane had started kind of late or like in the middle of 2020, for some reason, I guess I had a mid-year review. So this is important to note. So October 6th of 2020, I had a mid-year review, but it was done by the GM. It wasn't done by Jane. So Alex had done this, and I'm just going to share a couple of the comments because it gives you some context, because I got this in October, and by February of 2021, so like basically 3 months later, it was a totally different review. Like it went from, this positive thing to completely off the rails. So in October 2020, I had this mid-year review, and it said, Alana has done an excellent job bringing fresh new projects and ideas to the table. She has implemented good process improvements that have helped streamline projects, creating better communication and quicker approval processes. Alana is excellent with timelines and is very efficient with her time. She also has been able to coach and guide her direct reports to become more efficient as well. Alana has demonstrated that she's very capable of running a creative department. She's been able to elevate our design and creative collateral in 2019 by constantly challenging herself in her direct reports to test and try things. She's an active participant in creative meetings and can be counted on for her professional opinion. Blah, blah, blah. Goes on to say how I work with Global and our US team. It's everything great. And then the general manager says, I'm super proud of Alana for her commitment to her learning and development. I also appreciate the level of support that she's given her to her direct reports and encouraging them to get their RGD designation. So pretty positive. That's October. Things start to go downhill because I can't handle the workload. I'm not having a good time with Jane. So then I talk to my doctor, and I'm telling her all about my symptoms, which are very classic anxiety symptoms and, kind of the panic attacks and all that jazz. And I'm telling my doctor, I was like, this is situational. This is a case of me being in a position that is awful. This person is targeting me. They're out to, they don't want me in this job. I can't handle this. So I actually originally reached out to my doctor because I was like, I need a week off. Can you just give me a thing for a week off? And to her credit, she's like, no, I'm not going to give you a note for a week off. And I was like, okay. She's like, you need 6 weeks. Because if you take a week, you're going to be halfway through the week and already dreading going back to work on Monday. And I was like, yeah. I hadn't thought about really taking short-term disability. It just hadn't been on my radar. So I said, okay. And what's interesting is immediately as she said that, the 6 weeks, I felt my whole body relax. I felt the relief come over. I was like, I do not have to deal with this person anymore. And it was so draining. It was just like, I just wanted to go to work and do my job and work with, the great people I had been working with. And I was so drained. So I got to go on leave. And I basically just emailed HR and I said, I'm going on leave. And I provided the paperwork that you have to do. It's a bit of a process to go on that, but it's definitely doable. And so I encourage you as well that if you have that option and you are going through something really difficult at work, you got to take the time out for yourself. I had never in my life taken 6 weeks off work, like ever. I've been just that person. You can hear it throughout all the episodes where I've really just worked and worked and worked. I was working by the age of 15, part-time job and going to school, doing all of that stuff. So the best part is that when I did go on leave, there was someone who came to the door and they picked up my computer and they picked up my work phone and they were literally took it away. It wasn't like it was just sitting in a closet and I could kind of think about it. It was like, we are taking this whole world away from you. And it was such a relief. Also because I'm convinced, and I have nothing to prove this, but I'm convinced that the work computer I had spyware on it. So I felt that they were monitoring a lot of things. Just certain things were brought up in some of the conversations in the meetings I'd had, especially that one where the two of them were kind of ganging up on me. That I was just like, I don't know how they know certain things, because I had my work, my Blush Cosmetics work computer in the same office as my personal computer. And so I think there was spyware, and it is totally 100%, as of last time I checked, totally legal to have spyware on work computers in Ontario. So I don't know if that is still applicable. I don't know if it's across Canada, wherever, but So I was thrilled that they took away the computer and the phone, and I took that time off. And so I didn't want to share everything with the team that was going on. So I was really keeping a lot of it to myself because I didn't want it affecting their performance. I was trying to take on as much of the burden as possible. I mean, they had their own challenges working with her, but I did just try and kind of protect them and keep it as simple as possible. I think there was a bit of a surprise when I said, listen, I'm taking some time off. Eventually they kind of knew what was going on, but I did take some time. So it was incredible. What did I do during that time? Well, I just started trying to sleep. And I also did a mindfulness course. And I just want to mention this because this was something free that I did. And someone I know who went through a toxic job situation, toxic boss, very similar. She's like, yeah, there is, you can do, I think it was an 8-week mindfulness course for free that I got a referral through my GP, and it was hosted through one of the hospitals, and it was online, and it was with a group of people, and it was basically to try and calm your nervous system and chill out and approach things positively, and it was totally free. So you might want to look into something like that, and I was really grateful to get it. And I just said, like, I'm going to do what I can to get myself back to health because I mean, I was nauseous all the time. I had just so many stomach issues, the headaches, the migraines, the neck stress, the anxiety. And you know what? No job should do this to you. It is absolutely ridiculous that a job should do this to you. And can I tell you how much anger I had that this person I felt was responsible? Like that whole thing about one bad apple ruining the whole bucket or bunched, I did feel like that was what's going on. And one person can absolutely have that effect on not just one other person, but on a whole company. And I was so mad that this person was allowed to have their job, that they were completely incompetent. They couldn't do it. And they were protected. And I had no idea why. And I couldn't understand how this person is making more money than all of us and gets to have this fancy director title and more vacation and all the things. And I think this is the really hard part is that it's the life isn't fair lesson. You know, when you're a kid and you're told like life isn't fair, and then you're an adult and you're like, you want things to be fair. Like, how can this injustice happen? And I'm one of those people really triggered by injustice, right? So like unfairness, when just this makes no sense. Like, again, how is this person allowed to be so mean and so ridiculous and not do her job? So on top of the fact that she's sending these like snippy emails, she wrote one email to me that was like all in caps. And so of course, all in caps sounds like you're yelling. Now, it was explained to me that that was maybe a cultural thing too, that she didn't know that that's how we're interpreting it. But she was screaming at me on all in caps that because I had said something was not my job to do, and which I believe was probably copy related, and just lost it on me for that. So she'd written all these kind of snippy emails, all these things, and I couldn't believe that, you know, she gets to keep her job at this really prestigious company. I just where really the expectations for performance were very high, and everyone else was so good at their job. So the anger was something that I had to process in the time off. So that's, again, not going to go away within a week. And even now, like I can feel that the emotions bubble up, although it's not nearly like it was. The crazy part is, guys, this person still has her job. Same job. Same job. She's still working the same job. How does that happen? I have no idea. Again, there's got to be something going on. And, you know, this is part of corporate culture. I feel like it's like freaking House of Cards behind the scenes, like what goes on, especially these really big companies. And I'm pretty confident to say I'll never work for a company like a big corporate company like that again. I'm fine doing corporate work, companies that are, you know, still making millions of dollars, all of that. But to step into this corporate red tape, where people get to keep their jobs who can't do their job, I can't do it. I really don't want to do it. During the time I had off, I was like, do I go back to this job? And of course, I was fearing going back because I was like, she is going to retaliate. She is going to be mad as hell that I took this time off. And I did feel kind of bad leaving the team, leaving them with more work. And I knew she was going to be furious. And guess what, guys? she was furious when I came back. I think I was in the job 2 days before I got wind of how upset she was. So I'm going to talk about that in part 3, where I also go through the performance plan or performance review that's really made me realize that I'm going to have to leave this role and this company. And the job that I worked so hard to get was no longer going to be available to me or an option if I was going to in any way take care of my mental and physical health. So I'm going to leave you with that for you guys to get excited about part 3, because there's more to come. Take care, guys. Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. You showing up here means so, so much to me. To dig deeper into the topics discussed today and to learn about my work, visit alanarosa.com. And don't forget to download your free resources while you're there. And if this episode resonated with you, please share with others who also want to ditch the struggle. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and let me know what you'd like to see more of on this podcast. And before I go, I want to leave you with my 3 favorite ways to ditch the struggle. Be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.